Billionaire discovers. Surprising truth as Maid eats in the rain. A transformative moment unveiled. Tom Caldwell stood in his expansive study, glass walls showcasing the storm battering his estate. The downpour cast a somber mood over his meticulously decorated space, where success hung heavy in the air like the scent of aged whiskey. His eyes burrowed into a financial report detailing his latest venture. Numbers danced across the page, mocking him. How many more zeros could make him feel accomplished? The walls he had built around his life seemed impenetrable, yet a small flicker of unease sparked in his chest. Alone at the top, he no longer felt invincible. He stepped onto the lush balcony, searching for clarity within the chaos outside. A gust of wind whipped around him, mingling with the echoes of a life spent scaling corporate ladders, often at others' expense. Tom's attention shifted to a figure beneath a dripping awning, and he squinted against the deluge. It was Maria, his maid, holding a simple sandwich, appearing so unfazed by the relentless rain. She took a bite, her laughter rippling through the storm, a stark contrast to his corporate existence. In that moment, Tom felt the ground shift beneath him. How truly detached had he become? The lavish estate that represented his triumph felt like a gilded cage. The sight of Maria's resilience plaguing him with questions he had never dared to voice. His heart raced. Was there beauty in poverty that he'd never acknowledged? The sandwich in her hand might symbolize the struggle he had always overlooked. A moral dilemma tightened around him like a noose. Who was he to mock her joy? The sheer absurdity of it all clawed at him. Days turned into weeks, and every time Tom caught sight of Maria, he felt an inexplicable pull towards her world. He began to uncover pieces of her life stories, tales of hardship and dreams cloaked in dark hues, ultimately spilling onto canvas. Each stroke of her paintbrush brought forth a vigor that Tom had long forgotten. The realization weighed heavily on him. Could he leverage his influence to uplift someone instead of burying them under ambition? Yet, as this budding friendship blossomed, an unsettling truth clawed at his ego. He began to lose sleep, haunted by the unrelenting specter of his own legacy. The more Maria revealed herself, the more debilitating his internal conflict became. Had he built his empire on the backs of countless like her? The answer throbbed in his veins, an inner turmoil that roared louder than the storm outside. What kind of man profits while others suffer? His palms turned clammy, and he choked on the very air he had once taken for granted. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tomorrow loomed large with the anticipation of Maria's art show. Walls adorned with her soul's truth would be revealed to the world, and within his heart, Tom felt the weight of potential betrayal. What would happen if he threw his support behind her? Would he unearth the necktie noose he'd been tightening around himself and threaten everything he built? Anxiety surged. He could not reconcile the thought of abandoning his station. The rain hammered down, as if echoing his agonizing questions. Would a single choice shatter his carefully crafted existence? The storm outside mirrored the one raging within as he stood at a precipice, caught between societal riches and the profound currency of authentic connection. The night wrapped around him, leaving him suspended in anguish. What would he sacrifice for redemption, if anything? As dawn broke, gray clouds hung heavily in the sky, a subtle reminder of the storm's fury from the night before. Tom stared blankly at his reflection in the polished surface of the coffee table, a man divided between the towering structure of his success and the uncertain flip side of true fulfillment. Today would be different. He could feel it like the static tension before a storm. With his heart in his throat, he meticulously dressed, painfully aware of each button pulled tight, each cuff crisply aligned. The crispness felt like a facade. Beneath the surface brewed uncertainty. The drive to the gallery felt interminable. He wrestled with the choices crowding his mind. Would attending Maria's show mean sacrificing the empire he had worked so hard to build? Or could it be the first step toward rediscovering his humanity? He clenched the steering wheel, heart racing as he approached the venue bursting with potential and promise. Doubts clawed at him fiercely, each one a reminder of his hard-won isolation. Upon arrival, Tom stepped into a realm infused with creativity, the energy palpable in the air like an electric current. People gathered, their laughter a vibrant contrast to the static loneliness he had embraced for too long. He absorbed the beauty of the artwork around him, pieces that spoke of struggle and resilience. Each brushstroke seemed to draw him closer to a truth he had spent years ignoring. But what did he even know of such realities? Was he merely a spectator in a world he'd never understand? Then he saw her. Maria's eyes sparkled as she engaged with guests, her laughter genuine and warm. As he approached, he felt an immediate flutter of anxiety. Would she sense the conflict inside him? She turned, and their gazes locked. For a fleeting moment, the room faded. Her presence grounded him, yet unleashed a torrent of fear at what lay ahead. "Tom, you made it!" she exclaimed, her smile brightening the room. In her delight, he found a glimmer of courage battling against the swell of his hesitation. He fought against the urge to retreat. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," he replied, the words tasting foreign on his tongue. And yet, the truth was much deeper. He was terrified of how this show might reshape their connection, how it could unravel his carefully curated world. As the evening unfurled, Tom mingled, observing how art could ignite visceral emotions. He felt shadows of envy as admirers praised Maria's talent, punctuated by his own struggling thoughts. He should be at the epicenter of admiration, yet he felt like a ghost hovering on the margins. Could he truly support her in a world that demanded he stifle the authentic? The question drove nails into his resolve. He wanted to be proud of her, not through a lens owning her success, but as an ally in her journey. As he stood gazing at one particularly evocative piece, reflecting the resilience evoked in the storm, an unexpected voice broke his reverie. "Beautiful, isn't it?" It was a fellow patron, drawn in by the artwork. "Yes," Tom breathed, its rawness cutting through his mental fog. It encapsulates a struggle that runs deep. He surprised himself with his own insight. "Art can heal, Mr. Caldwell," the patron said, eyes shining with conviction. "It teaches us to confront our inner chaos." Sanity struck him like a bell tolling in a fog. Maria's art didn't just speak. It demanded action. Could it be that the only way to heal was to step away from his empire, shake hands with vulnerability, and invest in someone else's dream? The moment crystallized in his mind, affirming his growing resolve. As Maria joined him, standing side by side with that radiant smile, a new chapter beckoned ahead. Yet, the impending decision loomed larger than clouds above. Still caught between two worlds, Tom quietly vowed to act on his instincts. However, a lingering fear tightened its grip. What would it cost him? The moment of truth awaited. Would he be brave enough to take a leap into the unknown, or would he cling to the chains of his existing life? The question felt perilous, a knot of uncertainty swirling in his stomach as hope and fear warred for dominance within him. Tom felt the ground shift again, and the stakes had never been higher. What would he uncover by stepping into Maria's world? Perhaps something that would change him forever. Tom stood next to Maria, her enthusiastic energy infusing him with a hesitant resolve. As she continued to absorb compliments, he felt like an interloper in a realm brimming with authenticity, the contrast between their worlds whispering uncertain promises. He glanced around, observing laughter and camaraderie bursting forth like vivid paint splashes against a canvas of expectation. Why was it so hard to let go of the control he clutched so tightly? He practiced his smile, forcing it to not betray the turmoil swirling beneath his polished exterior. Was this who he wanted to be? The flattering shadows of his success felt heavier today, looming like a specter, threatening to walk him away from the light Maria embodied. As guests floated away to admire more art pieces, Tom felt a sudden urgency welling within him. He moved closer to Maria, each step seeming to resonate through his heart like a drumbeat. How could he be a part of her world if he didn't dare to intersect it? "I really admire how you connect with people, the way you talk to them," he said, his voice emerging with more sincerity than he intended. Her brow arched in curiosity, but he pressed on, driven by the weight of his vulnerability. "It's like they're part of the experience, not just observers." A knowing smile crossed her lips. "It's what makes art meaningful. It's more than the canvas. It's about the stories we share and how we affect each other." This simple philosophy struck Tom like lightning. It was some truth he'd buried beneath the weight of dollar signs and corporate accolades. Directly confronting his existing paradigms felt like standing naked before her, yet instead of retreating, he stood firm. "What story do I tell?" he wondered, his thoughts spiraling in endless loops. The very architecture of his success was blank, lacking any real narrative. Seeking the sanctuary of a more private conversation, he gently guided Maria away from the thrumming crowd, into a quieter corner, adorned with a breathtaking mural, a swirling tempest, captured with strokes of vivid blues and grays. "Can I share something a bit personal?" The words tumbled out, surprising even himself. Her gaze softened, and she nodded, the earnestness in her eyes restoring his courage. "Of course, Tom. I've built this empire, but sometimes I question if that's all there is for me," he admitted, a fragile confession trembling between them. "It feels hollow." Maria stepped closer, her hands folding together. "And what if your empire was simply the beginning of a bigger story? Expanding your horizon doesn't mean destroying what you've built. It could mean enriching it." Her insight ignited a spark within him. Could confronting his vulnerabilities allow him to weave a richer narrative, one that included the beauty of shared dreams? The apprehensions that had hounded him felt lighter now. "Do you really believe in that?" he probed, seeking confirmation, the timid doubts threading their way back. "Yes. There's beauty in the struggle, and perhaps you've shut yourself off from the healing power it can bring." Maria's words trailed through the air into the recesses of his uncertainty, teasing out hidden truths. Could vulnerability be the pivotal brushstroke his life needed? The rate of his pulse quickened as he envisioned the possibility. Yet he was still uncertain. What would shifting his focus from self to shared dreams demand of him? Convinced he was at the precipice of awakening, he realized he couldn't retreat any longer. "I want to understand my role in your journey," he said finally, a leap of faith that echoed his deep longing for connection. "Then let's explore it together," Maria replied, her voice steady and confident, as if presenting him with an invitation he couldn't refuse. Still, the question lingered. What would this partnership demand from him? As he opened up to this new possibility, Tom felt another door creaking open. Was he ready to face not only the excitement of possibility, but the ghosts of his past that would surely resurface? This burgeoning sense of hope battled fiercely with the remnants of fear lurking beneath, a cacophony of emotions urging him to explore the unknown. Little did he know that imminent discoveries awaited him, dark yet vital territories of his psyche longing to be unearthed. The moment had come to either embrace transformation or let the shadows of his past devour the vibrant spark flickering before him. Would he be the architect of a new narrative, or would he remain bound by the shackles of his existing life, succumbing to the looming storm of his own design? The air hummed with a tension so palpable it felt like a living entity. Tom stood at the intersection of possibility and past, teetering on the brink of something profound yet unsettling. As Maria's offer settled in the space between them, He felt a flicker of excitement challenge the inertia that had defined so much of his career. Explore, he repeated to himself, anxiety curling and twisting around the syllables. What did that even mean for a man who had built his identity on calculated decisions, profit margins, and strategic negotiations? Could he possibly navigate the emotional murkiness of exploring shared dreams while also confronting the shadows of his own making? Turning away from her captivating gaze, Tom surveyed the mural, a vibrant tempest of color that seemed to mirror his internal struggle. Each twist of paint suggested a journey, complete with chaos and beauty. It whispered to him, capturing the essence of vulnerability and the reveal of deeper truths. Dare he peel back the layers of pretense he had carefully constructed? Will I lose everything? The question flitted through his mind, an insidious remnant of insecurity. In his world, loss was a real threat, one he meticulously avoided at all costs. Yet here he was, breathing in the reckless allure of transformation. Tom? Maria's voice softly broke the surface tension. What are you thinking? He hesitated, grappling with his warped sense of safety. I'm scared, Maria, he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. If I dive into this, into you, and let go of the fortress I've built, who will I become? Her expression softened, empathy glowing in her eyes. You won't just become someone else. You'll uncover who you truly are, a process that requires honesty and courage. The person behind the empire, the one with stories untold. Stories. That word resonated within him, echoing with the weight of unexamined experiences. Memories flickered, moments of inspiration buried beneath boardroom meetings, laughter at holidays diminished by responsibilities, dreams overshadowed by relentless pursuits of success. Was it too late to unveil that part of himself? Every story worth telling has struggle, she continued, sensing his inner battle. What made me connect with you in the first place is that behind all the accolades, there's a search for meaning. Isn't that the common thread? Her words felt like a key unlocking previously sealed chambers in his heart. He pondered her challenge, feeling the rising warmth of recognition. His relentless push for success didn't provide him with meaning. The chase had merely been a distraction. What if I stepped outside that fortress? He wondered aloud, suddenly fueled by a burgeoning commitment. What if I decided to invite people in instead of crafting a facade? That's a start, Tom, Maria encouraged, nodding with pride. Start small. Let others see your real self. Share your vulnerabilities with them. It's through authenticity that genuine connections are forged. Her assertion lodged itself within him, and for the first time, a vision crept into his mind. Of him being candid with his colleagues, fostering transparency rather than holding them at bay. I've unknowingly practiced isolation as a survival tactic, he confessed, the heaviness of truth unspooling in him. Perhaps letting others in could invite not only freedom, but also collaboration. Yes! Imagine the stories waiting to emerge from that bond, the creativity from shared experiences clashing and blending. Maria's enthusiasm wrapped around him like a lifeline. Yet even as hope flourished, the reality loomed, jagged and clashing. What if his colleagues resisted this newfound openness? What if the tangible rewards he had accumulated began to crumble? Tom stood on the precipice of a choice as feelings warred within him. To step into this unknown meant risking everything he'd built. But the warmth of potential, shared dreams, meaningful connections, called out, promising vibrancy over the dull loneliness of the corporate climb. Your suggestion is radical, he said slowly, but this transformation hinges on me letting go. It'll take time to reshape those relationships, building trust in a way I've never navigated before. Trust is earned, but it's also a leap of faith, Maria replied, her unwavering confidence urging him forward. You'll find that by taking risks, authentic connections will unfold, and they might not only enhance your personal story but could reshape your empire itself. Tom stood there wrestling with the dichotomy of fear and excitement, the anticipation crackling in the air between them. He could feel the intricate tapestry of his life begging to be rewoven, threads of vulnerability intertwined with ambitions anew. And yet, bringing the ghosts of stale relationships into the light would mean facing the potential fallout. Could he balance the thrill of discovery with the comforting weight of the familiar that held him captive for so long? The storm raged within him, a whirlpool of emotions ready to either pull him under or propel him forward. And in that moment, caught between the fears of the past and the allure of what could be, Tom knew that a choice awaited him. As he finally confronted this essential moment, he felt the energy shift, the decision looming ahead like thunder in the distance. Would he dare to cross the threshold, or would he allow the fear of losing his carefully constructed identity to silence the potential of his true self? Tom stood at the edge of a precipice, his mind racing as 1,000 questions buzzed in his thoughts. The mural continued to thrum with life behind Maria, its colors now dulling against the weight of his uncertainty. Was he really ready to loosen the iron grip of his fortress and embrace the chaos of personal exploration? Each heartbeat seemed to echo his trepidation, urging him to confront the roots of his carefully curated existence. The days melted into one another, punctuated by a relentless cycle of meetings and presentations. Yet, amidst this seeming normalcy, Tom found cracks emerging in his facade. Conversations that used to flow smoothly now felt stilted and forced. The familiar camaraderie with his colleagues dulled, muted by the unarticulated tension he carried after his dialogue with Maria. Each smile he offered masked a tremor of impatience, an urgency to share, to expose himself, yet his instincts choked out that faint yearning. During one particularly grueling day, while staring blankly at another spreadsheet overflowing with numbers, Tom's attention was drawn by the faint laughter drifting through his office door. He leaned back, allowing the sound to wash over him as warmth coated his chest. He remembered a brief interaction with a junior associate, a young woman, Jessica, who had brought in fresh ideas and a spark of creativity that had inspired others. In that moment, a thought took hold. What if he invited Jessica in? What if he gave her a platform to shine without fear of judgment? The thought sprang forth unbidden, yet it held the scent of authenticity. He felt a flicker of nerve. Perhaps engaging in a more open and heartfelt manner was not about bombarding his team with his vulnerabilities, but instead facilitating a space for theirs. Gesturing to the door, he summoned Jessica to his office. The surprise in her eyes, coupled with a sliver of excitement, ignited something within him. What do you think about sharing those ideas you mentioned in the last meeting? The ones about the new campaign? Jessica's face lit up as her hesitation dissipated. Really? You want to collaborate on that? Yes. His determination solidified. But I want to make this a real exchange. Share what you need from me, too. This cannot just go one way. The initial conversations blossomed into a series of rapid exchanges. Ideas flowed, and Tom found himself leaning into more collaborative dynamics, tasting the satisfaction of communal creativity. The new exchanges illuminated paths he hadn't considered before, insights he never dreamed of accessing. He was taken aback by how liberating it felt to watch Jessica and others articulate their thoughts, shaping a vision larger than any one individual, including himself. But the shadows lingered still, measures of doubt intertwining with his newfound zeal. Each moment of openness was tethered to fear. What if they began to see him as inadequate? What if they didn't respect the person behind the executive? Did he risk losing the remnants of his authority, the authority that had become a part of his identity? Yet within those moments of shared vulnerability, he recognized a burgeoning strength within him. It was an awakening, an acknowledgement that partnering with others did not divest him of his voice. Instead, it amplified it. Inspiration blossomed around the conference table where they gathered, the very act of engagement unearthing histories wrapped in ambition and unfiltered dreams. The day ended, yet the energy of possibility lingered as he returned home. a heady mix of excitement and trepidation thrumming beneath his skin. He stood before the mirror, scrutinizing his reflection. Was he changing? The man staring back had shades of the corporate leader he had always been, but those shades were gradually yielding ground to a new identity, rooted in connection and authenticity. As he prepared to retire for the night, Tom felt a surge of resolve. With each decision to engage authentically, another thread of his old self unraveled, revealing the man who had so long been shrouded in the shadows of expectations. Crossing the threshold of his own fortress had not shattered everything he had built. It was beginning to build something new. But the question loomed larger than himself. Would his colleagues embrace this shift? Would they see value in collaboration over cutthroat competition? He lay awake, haunted by the anticipation of tomorrow, the choices that would once again test his commitment to this unfolding transformation. The sound of the city outside reminded him. A relentless pulse, echoing the doubt and determination roaring inside. Would this newfound openness form genuine bridges, or would it crack under the pressure of untested dynamics? Tomorrow promised confrontation, a meeting that would stretch the fabric of their professional relationships, challenging every belief he'd held about leadership. The promise of discovery glinted teasingly, yet whether he would emerge transformed or undone remained a lingering uncertainty. Tom awoke to the dim light filtering through his bedroom window, the weight of uncertainty settling on his chest like a heavy quilt. He felt each pulse of his heartbeat, deepening the anxiety bubbling in his gut. The day ahead loomed before him, set to unfold with the potential for disaster or renewal. As he dressed, the mirror revealed a familiar visage, yet something in the eyes seemed different. A spark of anticipation mingled with trepidation. This was the man who had once relished the certainty of commands, metrics, and cold decisions. Today, however, he needed to navigate uncharted waters, a terrain built on trust and collaboration rather than executive mandates. The drive to the office was marked by an unusual tension, as every stoplight felt like an invitation for introspection. Questions gnawed at him. Could his colleagues embrace this new dynamic? Would they perceive his attempt at vulnerability as strength or weakness? His hands tightened on the steering wheel, but he reminded himself of the empowering exchanges with Jessica. How liberating it had been to share the spotlight, to step aside and allow others their moment to shine. Upon arrival, he was greeted by the buzz of voices and the sound of keyboards clicking, a fervor that felt strangely invigorating. As he entered the conference room, the combined energy of his team swirled around him, reinforcing his resolve. They settled into their seats, eyes keen, eager for direction. But today, he would not dictate the course. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady but layered with intention. "Today, I want to shift our focus. Instead of a one-way dialogue, let's collaborate. I'm interested in what each of you envisions for our campaign. Let's explore the innovative solutions you've been contemplating." There was a beat of silence, a moment of disbelief, before a ripple of curious glances passed around the table. Tom felt the tension in the air, uncertainty crackling like static electricity. He held his breath, waiting to see if they would respond positively or retreat into skepticism. Jessica was the first to break through. "That's an interesting approach, Tom. I think we have some exciting ideas. May I share what I've been working on?" Her enthusiasm ignited something in the room, priming a cascade of input that flooded from all corners. Colleagues who previously held back now began to express viewpoints with vigor. As each voice contributed, Tom leaned into their perspectives, not as a commander, but as a fellow participant committed to building a collaborative vision. Yet amid the current of positive engagement stirred a countercurrent of anxiety. Tom observed the facial expressions of the others. Were they truly invested in this new approach, or merely appeasing the change? Doubt gnawed at him again, a nagging companion as he navigated through discussions. What if the commitment he sought wasn't reciprocated? The afternoon unfolded like a delicate tapestry, rich with suggestions that dared to elevate their initial ideas. The chatter morphed into creativity, threads of ambition intertwining to create something bold. But his fear coiled tightly in his chest. Could he remain strong in this new role? Would his new commitment to collaboration falter under the strain of chaotic input? As the meeting drew to a close, Tom felt a tentative excitement begin to bloom. Perhaps there was merit in trusting his colleagues, something he had long denied. For the first time, he asked them to help steer the project, not merely to carry out his vision. As he looked around the room, their faces reflected a tentative acceptance, a fragile kinship born from shared ideas. On his way out, he caught a glimpse of himself in the glass wall, a fleeting image that seemed fuller, more resonant than the man who walked in. Could this sign of a collective endeavor hold the power to rewrite his leadership narrative? The fear still lingered, but it was tinged with the thrill of the unknown. As he returned to his office, the door closing softly behind him, the pulse of doubt and hope battled within him. Could this transformation have been enough to retain their respect? To reshape his identity beyond the confines of corporate hierarchies? The hour ticked closer to the end of the working day, but the chase of clarity eluded him. Tomorrow's meeting would require him to embrace uncertainty even further. A bigger decision loomed about taking a risk that could potentially revolutionize their approach to teamwork, or dismantle everything he had begun to weave anew. Tom sat back in his chair, adrenaline coursing through him as the sun dipped lower in the sky. A final thought emerged, one he'd have to confront before returning home. What greater challenge awaited him than to prioritize growth over fear, to embrace the power of vulnerability boldly and fearlessly? Facing the truth of who he had been and who he could be bore down upon him like thunderclouds brewing in the distance. Would he dare to invite change again tomorrow? Morning light pierced the stillness of Tom's office, illuminating a sea of papers and half-finished thoughts scattered across his desk. Today was different, and the very air felt charged with potential. The weight of uncertainty now seemed less oppressive. It had transformed into a determined resolve. He had sensed the flicker of possibility during yesterday's collaborative meeting, but whether that ember would grow into a flame remained uncertain. As he straightened the chair and smoothed the wrinkled paper before him, Tom felt the urge to push forward. Ideas were swirling, a cacophony of creativity he had never allowed to fully manifest within himself or amongst his team. Yet doubt lingered at the edges, whispering unsettling reminders. What if he faltered today? What if embracing this shift revealed more flaws than strengths? Recalling Jessica's animated contributions and the eagerness that had colored their discussions, Tom decided to anchor himself in those moments of collaboration. He visualized the meeting, considering the voices that had emerged from the fringes of the group. There was a strength in numbers he hadn't fully realized, an invitation not just for creativity, but for collective ownership. He set off to meet with Jessica, wanting to wrestle with the ideas they had shaped together. Her excited demeanor inspired him to think critically. They could leverage the new collaborative strategies to influence their project's direction. The potential ripples of success ignited a spark within him to take that leap of faith. He had established a foundation of trust. Now it was time to see how far it could stretch. Jessica was engaged in her usual morning hustle when Tom reached her desk. She greeted him with a bright smile, unaware of the tide of determination shifting within him. "Ready for round 2?" she teased, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "Actually, I was thinking we could brainstorm today, refine some of those concepts from yesterday, and approach the rest of the team with a cohesive presentation," he replied, noting her instant approval. Her enthusiasm was infectious, injecting immediate vigor into his plans. Together, they delved deep into the intricacies of their project. As ideas bounced between them, Tom felt a thrilling realization dawn upon him. He was no longer the solitary decision-maker, but rather a collaborator, fostering an environment where discovery was reciprocal. He was beginning to recognize the nuances of allowing others to contribute and harness their insights. This was more than leading. It was about creating a symbiotic dynamic where growth was shared, yet shadows of self-doubt threatened to creep back. Would this shift truly resonate with everyone? He worried that some team members might still cling to the old ways of command and control. Who would truly embrace this new path? He had to confront the reality that not everyone would agree with his pursuit of transformation. As he and Jessica crafted their presentation, there was a palpable tension building within him, a cocktail of eagerness and anxiety. The grand reveal would be crucial. Would his vulnerability be seen as innovative ambition or naive surrender? After hours of intense work, the presentation took shape. They carefully curated their vision, intertwining Tom's newfound collaborative spirit with practical strategies to invigorate their campaign. Each slide illustrated a potential future, vibrant with opportunities, and colored by the voices of the team. Yet, mixed within that excitement, was a gnawing apprehension about the impending meeting, which would require him to stand at the helm yet again, this time more exposed than before. As they prepared to present, a thought raced through Tom's mind. Vulnerability could be a strength once stripped of pretense. The earlier meeting had not merely constructed a framework, it had opened a door through which he might walk into uncharted territory with his team. The challenge ahead was not just about presenting ideas, but inviting everyone to share ownership of the journey ahead. As his colleagues gathered and settled into their seats, Tom inhaled deeply. The moment of truth was upon him, a crossroads where he would either fortify his changed approach or retreat into familiar habits. The reflection of the man in the glass wall was no longer timid and unsure. He was ready to face what was next. What if today marked not just a pivotal moment for their project, but for Tom himself? What if he finally embraced the risk of authenticity and collaboration in front of a group that could be hesitant or skeptical? That question hung over him like a tightly coiled spring, just waiting for release. He opened his mouth to begin, uncertainty swirling once again. Could he hold firm in this new perspective, or would he falter under their gaze? The task ahead promised transformation, but only if he was willing to confront the fears lurking just beneath the surface. Tom adjusted his tie, feeling the fabric scratch against his collar, a stark reminder of the confinement he had long associated with professionalism. As he stood before the gathered team, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism, he reminded himself that this was the moment he could pivot. Not just the project, but his entire approach to leadership. "Thank you all for coming," he started, his voice steady, despite the tremor of uncertainty rippling through him. "Today, I want to talk about the future of our project, but more importantly, I'm hoping to share ownership of that future with all of you." As he spoke, he focused on the nods from Jessica and others who shared in his vision. Each gesture filled him with a renewable energy, pushing back against the voices of self-doubt that whispered insidiously to him. He presented the slides, showcasing the collaborative ideas they had developed, each slide a testament to the power of shared voices and perspectives. The colors, shapes, and words danced in front of him, but he felt the weight of judgment from those who remained quiet. A hand raised. Tom paused, his heart racing. It was Roger, known for his critical approach. "Tom, how can we trust this collaborative nonsense? We've seen where loose structure leads. We need clear lines of authority." The challenge hung in the air like a thick fog. With a momentary rush of frustration, Tom felt the urge to retreat, to defend his past practices, to channel the old Tom who often silenced dissent with the weight of his role. But he stopped, taking a breath instead. "I understand your concerns, Roger. However, I've realized that authority without dialogue often leads us astray. What if we invite you to help shape this direction? Think of how much we could achieve together." The tension in the room shifted subtly. Others shifted in their seats, intrigued. Slowly, murmurs began swirling among the team. Jessica leaned forward. "I think we could really benefit from your analytical strengths combined with our teamwork. What if instead of directives, we established a charter for our project that we all contribute to?" As ideas began to flow, Tom felt the thrill of possibility surging through him. Words darted around the room and bounced off the walls, igniting discussions rather than quarrels. Yet, the pressure of those past failures loomed like a specter. Could he prioritize collaboration and still maintain accountability? He shared the details of the strategic adjustments they had outlined together, inviting feedback and acknowledging that there were no easy solutions. It's not about abandoning roles, it's about enhancing them. Where do our strengths intersect? As he spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability that coursed through him. He had cracked open a door, now praying it wouldn't swing back and hit him. Acknowledging his limitations felt both liberating and terrifying. Would they respect this new Tom, or dismiss him as indecisive? Surprisingly, over the next moments, the discussion surged, and voices that had been whispers found strength in the growing dialogue. Even Roger began contributing detours towards potential pitfalls, offering his perspective more openly, as the noise of collaboration outweighed the old norms of hierarchy. Yet amidst the burgeoning engagement, a reflective thought tugged at him. Who still held the power in this room? Was this truly transformation? Or would familiar dynamics reassert themselves when the excitement faded? As the meeting progressed, Tom felt a burgeoning sense of fulfillment radiate from his efforts, the daring act of vulnerability presenting an unexpected strength. But the critical moment was still ahead, ready to reveal not just his capability as a leader, but the authenticity of his intentions. When the meeting concluded, a good number of his colleagues lingered, chatting about possibilities that they had only seen as distant dreams before Tom's call to action. Yet a lingering tension pulsed within him. The comfort of familiarity beckoned. Retreating to the role of sole decision-maker loomed as a clear and safe option. "Tom?" Jessica's voice broke through his reverie, pulling him back to reality. "We've really got something here, don't we? Just imagine if we keep this energy up." Her optimism was evident, and as he smiled back, he realized there loomed a much more significant challenge ahead, fostering this new energy into a sustained movement away from his old habits. It was no longer just about achieving project goals. It was about reshaping himself in the process. But as Tom turned to walk away, a familiar voice rang through the echoing halls, pulling him back once more. "I hope this all isn't just a phase, Tom. That would be a real shame." The confidence from his colleagues dripped with skepticism, a challenge issued in their reticence. What tomorrow would bring was still shrouded in fog, but he knew it could either validate his transformation or provoke despair. The crossroads he faced now felt even more precarious, as he navigated building trust while confronting the inherent risks of leadership. He stepped out of the conference room, heart racing again. This journey was only just beginning, but the stakes felt ever higher as the potential for true growth hung before him, ripe for the taking. Would he be able to forge ahead without defaulting back to the shadows of his former self, or was he standing at the edge of a precipice poised to take a blind leap into the unknown? As Tom exited the conference room, the hum of conversation continued behind him, a persistent reminder that change was not just a fleeting moment, but an ongoing process. The weight of his responsibilities felt heavier than ever, a palpable anxiety tightening around his chest. He navigated through the maze of desks, their clutter echoing the chaos inside him. Doubts flickered. Had he truly committed to this new path, or was he merely trying to placate voices in his head? His footsteps led him to the open balcony where he often took breaks, hoping the air and skyline could still his racing thoughts. The sun hung low, casting long shadows over the city below. He leaned against the railing, eyes scanning familiar buildings, anchoring his thoughts. Could this actually be a breakthrough worth sharing, or just a smokescreen hiding the unyielding demands of corporate life? "What's the play now, Tom?" he murmured to himself, the words catching on the breeze. Internal conflict surged. Seeking collaboration meant giving up control, something that had once felt like a sanctuary for him. Just then, a memory popped into his mind, of high school group projects where debate led to deadlock, not productivity. Wouldn't it be easier to dictate the terms, enforce the rules from above? Yet he felt a rush of rebellion against that very notion. Returning to his desk, Tom scanned his emails. Jessica had sent a summary of the ideas generated during the meeting, a positive reflection on his push for collaboration. He felt a flicker of warmth. Perhaps this could be the start of something significant. He pulled out a blank sheet of paper, thoughts rapidly transforming into written plans, the ink like lifeblood for the ideas that wanted to escape. But just as momentum waned, his phone buzzed, interrupting the flow. The screen lit up with a message from Roger. It wasn't the supportive note he'd hoped for. "Let's be clear. I won't tolerate a lack of direction. Let's discuss our approach tomorrow." A wave of frustration washed over him. Was Roger simply echoing his own fears? The need for certainty had defined his career, but the path ahead wasn't about hollow assurances. Tom's grip tightened around the pen in his hand. It would be naive to think that others would automatically accept his shift in leadership style. It was evident that resistance would linger. That evening, Tom found himself at home. Ideas swirling in his mind, but the silence of his apartment amplifying the noise. The weight of his dual identities, control freak versus collaborative leader, seemed to clash with every breath he took. He grabbed a notebook and scribbled, "What fears drive our need for control?" This wasn't just for his team. It reflected an urgent question he needed to answer within himself. As he considered his next steps, his old reflexes surfaced. He could reassert dominance, commanding followers instead of champions. But was that what would truly help him grow or inspire trust? He felt the tide of anxiety rising, pushing against his newfound foundation. A confrontation loomed on the horizon, one that required him to face not just Roger, but the deepest fears that had kept him anchored to his past. The night stretched on, and he kept writing, words spilling onto the pages with a mix of urgency and clarity. He felt an undeniable thrill of possibility. He could reshape his narrative, but at what cost? Was the risk of vulnerability worth the potential reward of enlightenment? Finally, he closed the notebook, a single thought crystallizing in his mind. The time had come to face the truth of who I've been versus who I want to become. Tomorrow would not only ensure he confronted his colleagues, but also, profoundly, himself. As sleep crept in, one last thought burned bright within him. What if he could transform their doubts into motivation, his uncertainty into conviction? And just like that, the stakes escalated, as the dawn would bring not just a meeting, but a pivotal confrontation with his own identity as a leader. Tom awoke with the first rays of sunlight filtering through the curtains, feeling the weight of yesterday's events pressing on his chest like a heavy blanket. Today was not just another day at the office. It was a pivotal turning point. The echoes of doubt and anxiety still lurked in the corners of his mind. But a newfound resolve surged within him, igniting a desire to confront not just his colleagues, but the deeper layers of himself. As he dressed, he took a moment to glance at his reflection in the mirror, and for the first time in years, he could see more than just the corporate leader wrapped in tailored suits. There was an individual staring back, someone who was beginning to confront the chaos and complexity of his own narrative. Each button he fastened felt like a step toward reclamation, and he envisioned walking into the office not as a titan of industry, but as a collaborator, an equal among equals. The drive to the office felt electric, charged with possibilities. He thought about the conversation that awaited him with Roger, the very embodiment of the old guard's resistance to change. This was a crucial moment, and he could feel the turning of tides. Was he ready to embrace his authenticity, to risk everything he had built on the promise of collaboration and trust? Determination coursed through him. He was willing to sacrifice the facade of control for a chance at deeper connection. Upon arriving, Tom felt the familiar hum of the office, but saw it through a different lens. This time, the noise was music, a prelude to a symphony of ideas waiting to be harmonized. As he approached the conference room, his heart raced with each step. Would Roger be willing to contribute to the new vision? Would he meet Tom's vulnerability with understanding, or would he cling to the old ways, casting doubt on this emerging narrative. As the meeting commenced, Tom took a deep breath, grounding himself in the moment. Thank you all for joining me today. I realize there have been many changes lately, and some may have questions about direction. I want us to discuss our approach openly and honestly. He locked eyes with Roger, who leaned back, arms crossed, ready to challenge him. Tom, I still think the lack of a clear chain of command is risky, Roger said, his voice echoing the skepticism that had often stifled innovation in their meetings. Tom felt a surge of adrenaline, not fear, but a response to Roger's challenge. I understand your concern, Roger. However, I also believe that we have grown too comfortable in our silos. Innovation thrives in collaboration. Let's harness the collective creativity of this room. A ripple of murmurs broke out around the table. Colleagues who had once been silent now squirmed in their seats, curiosity blooming. Tom pressed on, drawing from the energy of support he sensed building around him. Let's create a living document today, something we can adapt and revise together. I want to ensure every voice is heard and valued. He could feel his heart racing, but the anxiety was quickly drowned out by the enthusiasm permeating the air. As ideas unfolded, Roger's expression softened slightly, if only for a moment. All right, let's test this collaborative approach. But remember, we need to have structure to guide us. Yes, and that structure can come from our shared input rather than a top-down mandate, Tom responded, empowered by the collective momentum. And so, the room ignited with energy. Conversations flowed, and for the first time, he witnessed the team engage willingly, weaving their distinct threads into a tapestry that was richer and more vivid than any single vision could provide. Tom's heart swelled with pride, not just for the contributions of his colleagues, but for his own evolution. He stood taller, anchored by the support surrounding him. By the end of the meeting, momentum had shifted. Colleagues who had held back began to step forward with ideas, suggestions, and strategies in a true embodiment of collaboration. As feedback rolled in from the team, Tom felt an unfamiliar sensation of contentment wash over him. This was the culmination of the journey he didn't even realize he was on. A journey of layered growth, professionalism refined through vulnerability, and the intoxicating freedom born from embracing connection. Afterward, as he lingered in the room, he could feel a palpable signing of recognition. His colleagues nodded approvingly, their trust beginning to solidify like the foundation of a new bridge he was building between authority and shared ambition. Even Roger met him with an appreciative nod, a rare gesture of acknowledgement that seemed to signal a shift. Leaving the conference room, Tom paused for a moment. The horizon outside was set ablaze with the colors of dawn, symbolic of his budding transformation. Today marked not just a victory for the project, but for his own journey of authenticity. He had embraced vulnerability, and in doing so, he had reshaped his leadership narrative, creating an environment that welcomed challenges and celebrated collective accomplishment. Tom stepped outside and inhaled deeply, allowing the fresh air to invigorate him. He had proved not only to his colleagues but to himself that true leadership is not defined by dominance, but by the courage to connect. He walked toward his desk, the familiar rhythm of the office feeling like a new melody, one that promised growth, collaboration, and a brighter future. In his heart, he knew he was no longer just the architect of an empire built on individual success. He was a part of something larger, a community of shared hopes, dreams, and aspirations. This was the man he had yearned to become, and now he was ready to embrace the ever-evolving journey ahead. Now, as you reflect on Tom's incredible transformation, remember that your journey is equally vital. You need to subscribe now to stay connected with passionate stories like Tom's that inspire and uplift. This is the moment to show your support, so leave a like now, to fuel the algorithm that helps bring these heartfelt narratives to life. Don't wait. Even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters. Comment below your reactions and theories, and let's continue to create a community that values stories of personal growth and triumph.